Hey there. Have you ever wondered how photographers can magically freeze time or turn movement into a creative photograph? Well, in this video, I'm going to delve into the fascinating technique of panning and how it relates to the principles of relativity. Okay, cheap joke, but I hope you'll hang in there and hang around as we take a trip through the streets of New York and explore a topic that sounds like something out of an Einstein playbook. And I'll show you how these concepts come into play right through the lens of a camera. So, let's do this. Hey there. Well, this week's video is going to be about a little trip to the Big Apple, New York City, one of the greatest cities in the world, and a place that my wife and I like to come to a couple times a year to catch a show, meet up with family, and see our daughter who lives and works here. And absolutely take some pictures on the street. And I brought with me today my ZF with a new Voigtlander 50mm 1.0 lens. This baby is sharp. It has the most amazing bokeh, and I think it's going to be great for street photography. One little setback is that it is a manual focus lens, but I grew up with manual focus and it shouldn't be that hard, although you get kind of used to pushing that button and getting that sharp focus immediately with autofocus. But I'm going to give it a shot, see what we can do. I love taking pictures out on the streets of New York and seeing all the people and all the movement and all the excitement going on around me. So I hope you join me for this short little video. If you like the video and want to stick around and get alerts, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and ring that bell. So, those were some shots I've taken over the years on some of my trips to New York. But this time around, I wanted to try to learn a technique that's new to me: panning. While taking this technique to the streets of New York, I realized that I had explored this concept in the past, but it wasn't related to photography. Rather, it was in a physics class in college. Now, before you click off, I promise not only will the technique of panning become more clear to you after watching this video, but you might just grasp the mind-boggling special theory of relativity as well. So, have you ever wondered why some photos freeze action in perfect clarity, while others streak with motion and life? The answer lies not just in your camera, but in the theory proposed over a century ago by none other than Albert Einstein. Now, I'm pretty sure photography had a lot to do with some of the thought processes that dear old Albert used to develop his theory of relativity. How can I be so sure? Well, did you know that 5 years before Kodak came out with its Super 620 automatic camera, Dr. Albert Einstein received a patent for a camera which could automatically determine the proper aperture and exposure to take a photograph? Now, while I can't prove it, the mere fact that Albert Einstein was fascinated with light and patented what some believe was the first automatic camera makes me believe he would have been thinking in terms of photography to simplify thought experiments on how speed and light interact with time. You see, Einstein's special theory of relativity taught us something powerful: that motion and time look different depending on where you are standing. For example, on a moving train or bus, a light beam seems to move straight along with the motion of the train. But when viewed from someone outside, that beam moves in an angled motion because the train is moving. As we see here in this photo I took in Union Square, the interior light beams are streaked along with the motion of the bus. But to the passengers on that bus, these light beams appear stationary. This can better be visualized by imagining the person on a moving train throwing a ball straight up into the air. To that passenger, the ball is moving straight up and down, but to the stationary observer on a platform, the ball is moving sideways in relation to the motion of the train and the platform. In photography, we experience a similar truth. How motion appears in a photo depends upon you, the photographer, your shutter speed, and how your camera is moving in relation to your subject. When your subject moves, your camera settings must respond, especially the shutter speed. The triangle of motion and light begins here. Now, in any discussion of photography, we must discuss the exposure triangle. This triangle consists of three main settings on your camera that you need to be aware of: shutter speed, aperture, and ISO, and how they function in order to control exposure for the final photographic outcome. These three settings control how your photo is exposed. Change one, and you'll need to adjust the others. Now, my Nikon ZF is an excellent example of how we can change these settings the old-fashioned way. By using the dials that are on the top of this camera, it becomes an excellent camera for professionals, but also for beginners trying to get a feel for how to dial in the exposure triangle. You see, I can adjust all three of these settings. Up here, the ISO, here my shutter speed, and on this Voigtlander lens, I can adjust my aperture settings, which is how much light is let into the camera. And by keeping an eye on my histogram and knowing what it is that I'm trying to accomplish in my capture, I have a lot of flexibility. Now, let's zoom in on shutter speed. A fast shutter speed, say 1/1000th of a second, will freeze motion, while a slow shutter speed, say 1/30th of a second, lets movement blur. To reduce this blur, you need to use a faster shutter speed. You need to improve stability of your camera by either using a tripod or steadying it with your hands or your body. And you must adjust your aperture, which is the amount of light being let in to adjust blur or motion around the subject. When using a fast shutter speed, one has to let more light in, and thus have a wider aperture. But keep in mind, the wider the aperture, the less depth of field there is, and objects behind and in front of the subject may also blur. Now, blur isn't always a bad thing. In fact, in photography, we call this bokeh. And with a stationary object, such as in this case my wife, by using a very wide aperture, I'm able to isolate her from the background of Times Square, which gives, I think, a wonderful effect. With this capture, since I was in broad daylight, in order to use a wide open aperture, I needed to reduce the amount of light entering the lens by using something called an ND filter, sort of like placing sunglasses over the lens. And by doing so, I'm able to still get the shallow depth of field effect without overexposing the picture. If the subject is moving with such a wide aperture, they may also become blurred, which can be an effect that you may or may not want in your capture. Now, what if you want to show motion creatively, to give life and direction to your image? Well, that's where panning comes in. In panning, you move your camera along with your subject, like following a runner or cyclist. The goal is to keep your subject sharp while blurring the background, creating a powerful sense of speed and energy. To master planning, you need to choose a slower shutter speed. I like, well, for moving vehicles and bicycles, something like 1/30th of a second, and for moving people, 1/15th of a second. Now, the important thing is to follow your subject smoothly, and at the same time, and the same speed and motion that the subject is moving, while hitting the shutter. And honestly, at first, it's not easy. But with a lot of practice, you'll soon get the hang of it. You may want to practice in one place, say the corner of a busy intersection, and keep following people, cyclists, cars with your camera over and over again until you get a feel for what works for you and what settings are best for you. Now, it's a lot easier when you have automatic subject focus. But when using a manual focus, you also need a lot more attempts and a lot more luck to get the shot sharp and in focus. What I like to do is first focus on something that's going to be in the same area when the next subject comes into my field of view. Street photography is the perfect playground for this. The streets of New York are alive with motion, people walking, cars speeding, bicycles weaving through traffic. The goal is not to just capture what you see, but to feel the rhythm of the street and capture how it moves. By controlling light, motion, and timing, you become the conductor of a visual symphony. Remember, light is your paint, the exposure triangle is your brush, and motion, well, that's your story. Whether you want to freeze motion or emphasize motion, it's all relative to how you choose to see the world and what story it is you want to tell. So that's my glimpse into the strange and beautiful link between Einstein, relativity, and the art of photography. Light, motion, time, these aren't just scientific concepts. They're the raw materials of vision. Panning reminds us of something deeper, that the world shifts depending on how we move through it. What we see, what we feel, it all depends on our frame of reference. Photography, like relativity, holds immense power. It can freeze truth or bend it. It can open eyes or close them. In the right hands, it's a force for light, for justice, for change. But in the wrong hands, it can distort, distract, and it can even deceive. So, choose wisely, shoot with purpose, because behind every frame lies the power not just to show the world, but to shape it. Until next time.